So all throughout this week, we've been talking about the transformative power of the gospel when it's at work within us. Yesterday specifically, we were trying to answer the question of whether or not we're ready. Are you prepared? Are you ready? And we're sort of continuing that idea today. Jesus tells a story in Luke chapter 12, specifically in 57 to 59. He tells this parable. He talks about a man who, or actually two people who are they're on the way to court. They've had some sort of disagreement. There's some problem between them. And what Jesus says, if you were the person and you had done something wrong to someone else, while you were walking to the court, before you ever got there, you would do what you could to work it out. You'd settle out of court, right? That's what we say. You'd settle out of court. You wouldn't want to go to the court because if you stood before the judge, you might get into trouble and you might end up having to be punished for the mistake that you made. So instead, long before you got to the court, even if it was up until, it's quite last minute if you're waiting till your walk to the courthouse to work it out. But Jesus said, even then, even if it's at the last moment, you would have a conversation and say, surely we can come to an agreement. Surely we can make this right. We don't have to continue on with this. And so Jesus, essentially, he's saying the same thing again. It's that same question of, are you prepared and are you ready? But he's asking us to look back, almost to look back at everything we've looked at in chapter 12, because really it takes us right through the way that we live with other people, the way that we relate to the things that we have and the things that we do with our time and resources, all of these things. And Jesus says, look back at your life. Consider, are there some areas this week as you've gone through these devotions, as you've read Luke chapter 12, as you've allowed the Holy Spirit to speak to you, have you noticed some areas where your faith has been more about performing, more about going through the right motions, putting the right ingredients into the mix, but not actually about a transforming work? Perhaps there's some areas that have come to mind. And what Jesus is saying is, make it right. Don't wait. Don't wait until that moment when the recital comes and you're standing before a teacher, but instead make it right now. Don't wait until you're standing before the judge in the courtroom and you have to give an account for why you chose to waste your time or waste your resources or choose other things as more valuable than Jesus. Don't wait to stand before God and have to explain why you spent so much energy being worried about things that you never needed to worry about because you could always be confident in Him. Instead, what Jesus says is to consider if your faith has been empty or lacking, then commit to Jesus. Maybe you just haven't had a faith, and Jesus says, commit to following Him. Or maybe your faith has been shallow or weak and you need to strengthen it. You need to build it up. You need to cast aside that worry and lean into a confidence in Jesus. Or perhaps your faith has been overrun by the cares of this world. You've been too focused and too inclined to value other things. And instead you need to recommit your heart once again to saying, no, it's only you, Jesus. It's not about perfection. It's not about getting it all right. It's not, perfection has to do with performance. It's about transformation. It's about saying, or it's about asking the question, am I in the process of becoming more like Jesus? Whenever you're on a journey to get healthy and lose weight, they often say the best thing to do is to take before pictures when you're beginning, because there will be moments in the journey when you think it doesn't feel like anything's changing. Maybe the numbers aren't moving on the scale. It doesn't feel like I'm having any success. And even when we can't feel it, like that yeast that works quietly in the background, it's just we can't see it. We're not sure it's happening. The beautiful thing about the before pictures, you take a picture, even if you're not to the end of your journey, but you just take a picture in the middle and you look at the side by side before and after, and you say, oh, I'm transforming. I don't look, my face is skinnier. Oh, I look, right? And you start to see, and then it fuels you again. What's your before and after? Paul talks about it later on in the New Testament. He says, remember what you were when you were called. Not many of you were known. And he goes on and he lists all these things. Not many of you were very impressive. Remember who you were. Look at the before and after and ask yourself, am I in the process? Not am I perfect? Because if you're trying to be perfect, you'll be tempted to put on a performance. But am I in the process? Can I see transformation happening? And does that fuel me then to pursue Jesus more? Or perhaps you want to ask that question, thinking of that yeast at work in the dough. Am I growing as the gospel swells within me? Is it filling up all the spaces in my life, all of the dark spaces? Are they becoming light? Are they being filled with Jesus? Is my heart and my mind growing to become more like Jesus? It's not about perfection. It's about transformation. How are you being transformed? Maybe take some time today and just to consider that question. Where has the Holy Spirit highlighted something in your life this week? And where do you want to begin to work and say, I don't want to wait. I want to allow the gospel to continue to transform me.